All right, let's get to our first topic of the evening. Let's talk. I'll start the first video the time that I talked about this. I'll start it the same way. Let's talk some superherodom, folks. DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths, the big 5-show crossover special. Oh my God, what a fantastic picture. It ended, a couple months ago now in January. DC TV's answer to Infinity War and Endgame delivered, in my humble opinion. As we've concluded Crisis on Infinite Earths, I sit here honestly in disbelief. The fact that they were actually able to pull off this grandiose spectacle on television. I expect it from my movies, but as far as like TV goes, like that's really hard to do, especially in the 2-month shooting frame that they had it. Feel free to check out the previous video that we had where we talked about the first 3 episodes of Crisis. That is in our watch history on Facebook and YouTube, so feel free to check that out if you want to hear some of my thoughts on that from a long time ago. So the goal of this crossover, it was to bring all of the CW shows to one Earth, one continuity. You had Supergirl over here on she's actually over here, on Earth 38. You had Black Lightning, who was on a separate Earth, which never had a number designation, so we call it Earth BL, Earth Black Lightning. And then you had all the other shows, Batwoman, Flash, and Green Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow also on Earth 1. So the goal of the crossover was to make it all one continuity. If it's all on one network, just keep the stories all together, which I think is a pretty good reason to have a crossover like this. Fun fact that I just learned about Black Lightning, the reason why it was a separate continuity from everything else was because Fox was originally going to pick it up the same way that they had Gotham on their network, another DC show. But Fox dropped it at the last minute, and the CW picked it up, and that's why it's its own separate continuity, which I thought was really interesting, because I was always trying to figure out why it's a great series on its own, but why did it need to be separate continuity? That's why, just because of politics. So who knew? I never knew that. I hope that Cress Williams can do more crossovers as Black Lightning, because I think his chemistry is great with the rest of the cast. At least I'd like a Flash crossover, because I think he and Grant Gustin can play off each other really well. That being said, without major spoilers, Part 4 of the crossover culminates in a big battle with the Anti-Monitor, and Part 5 introduces Earth Prime, the brand new continuity from all of these shows. It introduces it to the audience for the first time. I thought it was a very interesting thing to do by using the 5th part of the crossover as a way to reestablish for the audience what the new status quo is moving forward. All of these heroes being able to interact with each other at any given moment that's most convenient for them. I was relieved that we got to get to Part 5 so quickly. I thought it was going to be on the next night. Part 4 was on like a Tuesday, and I thought I was going to have to wait one more night to find out the conclusion of the series. But then Part 4 was on, and they said, ooh, new episode coming up next. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting more. And I didn't think I would. So thank you, CW, for giving me what I didn't think I needed. In the crossover, it ends with all of the heroes getting a big, giant Justice League table with all their logos and their chairs on it, nice leather finishes, and it looks really great. I'm a big fan of all the colors.
We need one of those.
We need one of those. We need a bigger studio to have that, but we'll get some money too. It works out. It'll all work out.
Send us some money if you got any lying around.
Yeah, send us money for a brand new table, for our dirty table. Hopefully they'll reunite for the next big threat. And the multiverse has been reestablished, even though these heroes don't know there's a multiverse. They don't know that there's the other film continuities and the DC Universe streaming service continuities with Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing and Titans. They don't know that all of this exists. They all just think that there's one Earth right now. So I'm curious how they go about with that concept moving forward. Like, do they get more cameos in there? Do they reestablish the multiverse to these characters? I would love to see Kingdom Come Superman come back again, Brandon Routh, which is technically Superman Returns. Superman. I don't know. I'd like to see more just because I thought it was a great opportunity. They can be smaller cameos too. It doesn't have to be like as many as possible. Even if you just had one cameo character on for a whole episode, I would be happy with that. So the multiverse has been reestablished. Before I continue on, Stargirl just got her announcement date for her new show. Which is set on Earth 2, which they established in the crossover. I believe, what do I have that as? I have that as Monday, May 11th on the DC Universe streaming service, Stargirl. And then the following night on the CW, they will air the broadcast rerun of that streaming service. So they're trying to bridge the streaming service gap over to the CW. So that way I think people can ultimately just tune in. I think they're going to do the same thing with Doom Patrol, where it's going to be broadcast on HBO Max. When it drops, as well as DC Universe, because I think we just don't know what's going to happen with the DC Universe streaming service for the time being. So this is a way of them to still get the shows out that
That's
they want.
good. Multiple options is good.
Yeah. Especially since DC Universe is like a niche thing. So I'm excited for that. But Stargirl is officially a part of the multiverse within this multiverse of continuity, and she's going to be on the CW. Comes out in May. Feel free to check it out. There are differences, obviously, from the comics, which I'm sure many diehard fans are going to get angry over because they don't like change. Oh, well. I thought Mark Guggenheim was perfectly clear in regards to talking to the executives from Warner Brothers and DC that he was going to put the toy box back together, that no movie continuities in the future, in the past or whatever, were all going to get destroyed. They were all going to get put back together, as opposed to the comic book where everything died except for the one new reality. I'm okay with still having a multiverse. It's fine with me. Like I said, I want more cameos out of it. It was a very big spectacle that went out of its way to make sure that all of the main stars of their respective shows, Supergirl, Batwoman, and everyone else, making sure that they have a chance to shine in the crossover, and I thought they excelled at that. What I love about the crossover especially is the implications that it's had on every single show. It's all trickled down. It especially plays the most in Flash because Barry is trying to still figure out all the differences between the former timeline and the now timeline of what changes have taken place. It's affected Supergirl a lot, too, because Lex Luthor is apparently no longer a bad guy. Semi-spoiler, but whatever. So it's So it's nice to see that this crossover had implications, because sometimes you have these big event things and it just doesn't matter. But I feel like for what they're trying to do, while respecting all the other respective showrunners for their shows, I think the crossover has impacted everything in some way. Even Batwoman, which I wasn't sure if they were going to, but I think they did in a respectable way that still honors the themes and the characters and everything going on with that show. Now, what the Arrowverse did, intentionally or not, with this concept was they invested in it very early on. They invested in it with The Flash. Even if they didn't know if they were going to get to Crisis, you could tell that from the first article that they had from the future where Barry Allen was going to vanish in the Crisis, you could tell that they were trying to build up towards something. I don't think they knew it was going to be this until a couple years ago when they were starting planning for the Elseworlds crossover and all that stuff after Crisis on Earth X. But I think it works. I think even just the idea of maybe we can play with this in the toolbox later on, I think is a great way to go about planning out your shows or planning out even your universe of storytelling. It's very similar to what the MCU did, in my opinion. Even if they didn't know that they were building up towards Thanos, they were able to course correct and retcon certain things to get them to the quote-unquote end game of their overall arc with Thanos, even if they didn't know that was going to be the case in the beginning. And that's fine. Just having some kind of idea of what maybe you can build up towards, I think, is a really good way of going about your live-action storytelling, so that way you don't get screwed over midway through a season and have to abandon certain things because you kind of forgot what the point of your season or what the point of your show was. It led to a big payoff, and I wish that DC Films would kind of take this mantra too. I think they tried to with Justice League initially. They've since kind of gone back on that and created much more independent stories, even some that are on film, even some that aren't set in the same continuity, such as Joker. And we'll talk more a little about that too with Birds of Prey. But I think the DC equivalent to the MCU is not on the big screen. I think it's right on the television set in your living room. And I think it's great. And I applaud everyone that was involved in Crisis because they just absolutely killed it. I'm still waiting on the green light from Green Arrow and the Canaries, the hopeful spinoff, to continue our Arrow stories, but we will see from there. And on that note, let's turn the conversation over and open it up. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Jack Lowe, who just watched this crossover just so... on the other side. Yeah. Just so he could...
He's totally over here. Yeah. I'm definitely looking right at Merrick.
Well, I need to flip you guys.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. People can read
shirt,
Fitchburg State. It's not a big deal.
Which is an obvious tell.
Yeah, it's whatever.
It's all right. It's showbiz.
We don't have a budget. So
We're not really in a castle right now? I'm confused.
I mean, I have all these cool folks behind me.
I've been in this Game Boy for a week.
Months. So you just got back into the Arrowverse. You had stepped away for a bit.
Yes.
But you wanted to come back to it just so you could enjoy the crossover, just because it's a big thing we built up to. Mm-hmm. You've been dying to talk to me about this because I know you have thoughts. What are your thoughts on this crossover, Jack?
Yeah, so I do agree with a lot of things you said, especially the part about how the DC universe is definitely better fit to the television screen, long form storytelling as opposed to whatever they're doing with movies these days.
Barney, you can actually go ahead and flip me now. I'm going to feel weird looking at the camera the entire time. It's okay, people.
Yeah, we're not on a news reporter. I'm not live on the scene.
No, I know some people do it on ESPN. It's better. Sorry if you can't read, guys.
I got to flip.
Anyway.
Appreciate it, Barney. Thank you. Go ahead, Jack.
Flip Jack, too, I think.
The weird thing for me is I started watching season 2 of Arrow, and I was so excited once Flash joined. I really love Flash, and I started giving up on Arrow about season 4 because there's a lot of production issues.
I understand,
with that.
yes, and it did, but in my opinion, they actually worked out some of those kinks by season 5 and by giving Damien Dark a return arc in a separate show entirely.
Sure.
So it does work out. You just got to get through it.
I just there wasn't really much to grab for me. Like the fights weren't great, the story wasn't great, so I was like, So anyway, like I don't mean to even talk ill of it, but it sort of ended up causing a huge fall off because like characters were dying and coming back.
The stakes weren't high enough.
No, they weren't.
I completely agree with you.
The pit was just an easy writing tool after a while. The Lazarus pit was just anyway. So for me, perspective-wise, I only say that because that meant that I was only really interested for the big things. So, like, I did jump back into Flash and caught up as far as the Thinker and a little bit past that. But once his daughter, spoilers, once Flash's daughter showed up, I'm like, okay, and I fell off the boat again. So
I can see why she gets likable for me. Midway through,
and I've tried a little bit of Legends of Tomorrow. I've tried, I've kept my toes in. I have never fully given up on it because I do love this interplay, all these different crossovers. I think it works as well as comic books do, where you have this feeling that like that they are in their own worlds, but they do bleed into each other's all the time, and it's great. So for me, I was very excited to come back for Infinite Earth.
Yeah, what I find funny is some comic book fans actually don't like all the interconnectivity. They like keeping things separate. And I mean, we did have that with other movies and other television shows before, but if we're in an age where we can play with crossing over, why not? This isn't going to last forever. This superhero renaissance is going to die off at some point. I'm ready to just rake it in and let's just keep playing in the sandpit together, y'all.
Yeah, as a kid who didn't really
nice. Was I breaking off into doing it?
As a kid who didn't really know what I was getting into anytime I would have a chance to buy a comic book, I loved comic books deeply, but did not have a good way to get them on the regular as a child. So when I would pick one up, characters would bleed into one book or another, and I'd be like, okay, I don't know why the Fantastic Four are here, but I love it. And that would keep me going because it's just like, I don't know what's going on around the scenes, behind the scenes, but this is something fascinating. And that's what I feel looking at, even though the effects can be a little cheesy at times.
It's television.
I don't think that was true of Infinite Earth. I think they really, Crisis on Infinite Earth, they really
budget,
pulled out all the
the
stuff.
The budget was there.
But the weirdest part, and the reason I even bring up all this was when I look back on the Arrowverse, because again, haven't watched since season 4, there are all these people who are like, oh God, I just miss Oliver so much. And I'm like, who are you? And where were you?
All right, so let me update you. We got a new Black Canary. We have a second Black Canary that was an Earth 2 form of Laurel after she died.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
we're going into major spoilers now.
That I can figure out.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah,
you know what you're watching. So we have 2 Black Canaries. Oliver has a daughter.
Yeah.
Who will hopefully be the star of a spin-off.
A lot of the stuff I can buy into very quickly. Yeah. Like Oliver's daughter, I'm like, all right, fine. Like clearly I missed that. But there was just like his team changed so dramatically, and I was surprised because like none of the people I was used to, Thea, Ronnie, like all these people, they're gone.
In season 5 of Arrow, he gets a team.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's Diggle and Felicity. They're like a core thing. But as far as like having a small Justice League of like Team Arrow, you get that the season after you gave up on it.
Yeah, so
which is when things actually started to get better because it really went from a Batman spinoff to attempting to kind of really
make its own thing.
It being its own thing to then being really a part of this universe of characters with Flash. It became
really
a superhero show in season 5.
The Arrowverse is fantastic. One thing that I really appreciated was just the many different ways that they were able to just a split second here and here, we're just going to sprinkle in. Like I did huge spoilers. If you don't want to hear like the different crossovers that happened in
they're with us. It's
all right. Grant Gustin. No, not Grant Gustin. The other
Ezra
one.
Miller.
Ezra Miller. I was like, what?
I dropped my hat. My sweater just magically came off.
I was like, hold on.
Believe it.
Can I just have this? Can he just? Oh,
Our
man.
DC
I was like, does that mean the
Films
Flash movie's still happening? What's going on? What's
Merrick,
happening? What do you mean by this?
Merrick, can you do me a favor, and the next time that happens, just grab your camera and record your reaction real quick to put on notes.
I should have.
Because we need that kind of,
Oh, yeah.
I should have.
Reaction streams.
I really thought we went through all of the cameos, but in part 4, they dropped it by getting a film actor to be a part of this thing. It was a very last-minute choice.
Well,
I remember how excited you were about that.
Oh man,
I had to text you the
I'm
footage
glad you and
right
I had
then
the same reaction. I was like, oh my god. But the other thing was, I'm mad that they did not bring up the fact that that Ray Park and frickin' Brandon Routh's Superman were the exact same person. Like it was like two jokes.
Kinda did.
They did 2 jokes. I needed it to be a running
So
gag.
you wanted an episode?
No, I needed a running gag. I need
wanted
every now and then.
the season.
Like he barely even seemed upset that there was another Superman, a Kryptonian, who looked exactly like him. I'd be a little weirded out in his.
I think he was complimented. I think the character of Ray Palmer was complimented by the fact
Palmer.
that
Oh, gosh,
he.
yeah.
It's okay. I think he was complimented by
Park
the
is
fact
Darth
that
Maul.
he had a Superman who looked like him.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I loved it. And honestly, when Lex Luthor came back and took over Brandon
man,
Routh's Superman,
John Cryer.
I was like, I hate you. Why?
John Cryer, I think, is my favorite
He did a
Lex
great job.
Luthor.
He's really
I love
good.
that. Like, I think we've talked about it before, but I love the legacy casting. I think it's great to take such a awkward character from a previous Superman franchise and just cast him and make him
Now, was
almost the quintessential Lex Luthor.
He's from the Smallville one, right?
No, he's
Where
from
is he
Superman 4. He was Lex Luthor's
Really?
nephew.
Really?
And that's why he got the legacy casting. So people are thinking John Cryer, the guy from 2.5 Men, is supposed to be one of the greatest DC villains of all time. Yes,
Yep.
and he's killing it. And I love it.
Good for him.
Wow.
You
Good
can't
for
tell
him.
that I'm excited or not. But yeah, he was a great. I like that they went out of their way to kind of include him into the crossover, and I like that he was willing to just help be in the ballpark too. Fun fact in regards to that Lex Luthor specifically. So there is a comic book tie-in. Barney, if you wouldn't mind just changing back to my original cam, that'd be great.
That's
Thank you very much. So this is even though you can't read it right now, it's fine. You can go to Walmart. There's the Crisis.
Ciceric?
Cicero.
So should try.
Circus. Crisis on
You know
Infinite
what?
Earths.
You know what? Here you go.
It's an
Thank you.
infinite-
I appreciate it. I'm
was
sorry.
almost there.
I'm such a
It's an
picky
infinity.
host.
No. There we go.
There's a Crisis on Infinite Earths tie-in book. There are 2 that I found my copies at Walmart, and while they show sections of the original Crisis book from 1985, they actually have 2 sets of stories in them that tie into the TV crossover, written by Mark Guggenheim and Marv Wolfman. So they are in fact canon. They're not glossed over. Yeah, they're not going to mention them in the TV show, but they go out of their way to make sure that it still feels a part of it. Nothing's
counts.
really going against each other. And there's a story with John Cryer meeting up with all the other Lex Luthors from every continuity. He actually meets up with Gene Hackman Lex in the comics, and they have a council of Lex Luthors from different variations and stuff. It's
I
dope.
love it when they do stuff like that in the comics because they don't need the actual appeance. They just
Nope,
draw
and
them.
it works because Gene Hackman wouldn't do that now, but that's okay.
I can't remember which iteration because they're just DC. Has so many different iterations of their universes, which I love. So let's just talk. I'm just going to cut right to the chase. Kevin Conroy, Batman.
Yeah. Oh my god, I can't believe we haven't even talked about him
Yeah.
yet, even in the last video.
Here's to Kevin Conroy.
So I was so excited to see him like on screen as Bruce.
Did you smile anytime he spoke? Because I smiled anytime he spoke
I was
because I
very
knew it was
happy.
Batman.
I was really hoping for like Mark Hamill to just be lurking in the Bat Cave, like
You just hear him like,
Hello, Batman.
oh, what are you doing back there, Batsy?
Wrong show.
What do you call it?
I know it would have been great, but that's okay. It's not like Mark Hamill wouldn't want to come back for something.
It would have
like
been
that.
nice to have just seen a Terry. I understand that they had to basically take, like Batgirl's or Batwoman's, her version and like basically transport those characters, which they did with multiple different alternate universes.
I think in regards
ones
to
they
the Terry
expected.
reference, I think that's why they called it Earth 99 as a way to semi-homage that to being more futuristic. And I mean, it's not a concrete numbering, but I think that was their way of...
I don't think I expected them to obviously bring a grumpy, broken Batman onto the team, but I was still bummed all the same. I did love that like exoskeleton they had. I can't remember what comic iteration that's based on.
Kingdom Come.
That's what it is. Thank
Kingdom
you so
Come.
much.
Yeah.
That was a nice nod, and I really liked the way it was portrayed on screen.
I know some fans with Kevin Conroy's Batman especially, they wanted him to be a part of the
in the
team,
suit.
and some were disappointed that it was in fact Batwoman who was going to become a Paragon.
She has a show.
She has
she's
a
going,
show!
There's
Come
no
on,
question she's going to be the
people.
one. But
I'm
if they can
sorry
have two
that-
Supermen, why not have two Bats?
Right, I'm sorry that
That's a good point.
Batman is taking
seriously.
a backseat to Batwoman, but at the same time, we've had Batman on screen
It's-
for years. I'm okay with the
Exactly.
change up.
Yeah.
Same thing with Supergirl, and some people are super upset that Supergirl is overshadowing Superman. And it's like, I'm sorry, we've had these guys for 70 plus years. I'm okay with the change up, especially when Supergirl is making better live screen Superman stories than Superman properties ever have.
How
Yeah.
how do you feel about Batwoman on that front as far as compared to the?
Good question. It's still early.
Yeah.
Batwoman is still finding her identity the same way that
it took
Supergirl was.
Supergirl
Yeah,
what
yeah,
three
every
seasons,
show-
4 seasons?
Yeah, Supergirl
Yeah.
was on a different network, and every episode cost $1 million because they shot each episode in a cave. So like, their production budget was through the roof. It's a
No,
wonder that they
You know how much it
reached the
costs to
finish
keep
line.
those generators running for all
Yeah.
the lights?
you can do that with green screen, right?
They wanted to go for a live effect, but then once
can't fake that kind
once
of
they
light.
canceled it on CBS, that's why they shifted over to the CW, and that's what saved the show. So they were able to refine
Yeah.
the budget. So that's a big reason why storytelling was a little off in Supergirl. But once they got into more political stuff in like season 4, then it's just taken off. And season 5 is still great writing, and DC Films doesn't apparently know what to do with Superman moving forward. You've got people who know how to write for Supergirl. Just transpose it on the big screen.
For me,
you monkeys.
It
Yeah.
didn't
Good
like
Lord.
it didn't hook me enough. Like in Crisis on
passionate,
Infinite
Barney.
Earth, as much as I really enjoyed the ride, it wasn't enough to hook me for like the continuing of the shows. Like I'm not like hungering for more. But that's the thing. I am very biased. Full disclaimer: I am a Marvel Star Wars boy.
Oh. One
I
of
do love
those.
DC.
You don't say.
But it is certainly not my strong suit. So I'm not like clamoring for more, but I'm so excited that they got to do that and I got to watch it.
No, that's fair. I was
Yeah.
clamoring for more once in part 5 they were able to establish the one continuity. Just because I love the idea of having everyone sit at the table and all the colors and the logos and just being able to. And I know it's not quite our picture perfect Justice League.
Oh, no,
But
no. All
I'm
that's
okay
fine.
with what they're going to do on screen. I'm okay with having 2 super beings, a bat figure that's not Batman, a Black Lightning, and going from there. I
The
think it works.
lineup was never the problem for me. You can make any character interesting. I mean, no one cared who Iron Man was until Robert Downey Jr. put
Yeah,
on the
darn
suit.
tootin'.
To paraphrase a Batman villain or two. But the problem for me is that CW writing is very apparent once you know what you're looking at. And
I agree. You can follow the formula
has a-
really
it
the
has
good.
a-
simplest way I
style.
can put it is I can't stand another episode of characters just not explaining how they feel to each other and making 40 minutes out of it.
Yeah, well, I
That's
mean,
definitely a meme.
I think
That's
there's
what
a
broke
big
me on
problem
our
with
era.
that in network television at this point.
CW, yes. Yes,
CW
this is true.
especially 'cause
They are
it's a smaller
very
budget.
guilty.
Oh, yeah.
They pat a lot of time with just being not, and it's not a good message to send as a story like that you should just withhold your feelings and not express what's bothering
But
you.
it's going on every episode to progress the
Oh,
characters
yeah, it's just
because they have
exhausting.
to save the money for the fights near the
I'm like
end of each episode.
I'm like Barry, just say it. Just stop.
you don't need to hold on to a secret for 6 episodes.
You already
Barry Allen.
promised you weren't going to have any more secrets, and you kept 3 since that. Since
And
that
it's been
promise.
3 seasons. No, I totally get you. I think network television is kind of. We're in a golden age of television, of course, but a lot of that comes from streaming, in my opinion, with how many services are out there. I mean, HBO Max is going to drop, I think, next month, April. I could have
Yeah,
that
and then
wrong.
there's
Am I
Peacock
right about
and
that?
Nickelodeon. It's just like, guys, just
It's just a ton, and so you're able to have freedom with that. I actually think, if I'm going to go into my personal favorite set of superheroes, the Power Rangers, I think if Power Rangers has their way, since Hasbro owns the franchise now, the toy company, I think they're going to go towards Netflix as soon as they can get out of the Nickelodeon contract, because
yeah.
I think they feel like they can do more.
definitely.
And I don't think if they had the choice, they would have done
Power Rangers
Nickelodeon if they still had the choice, but they didn't have a say in that contract.
They've carved the market on reimagining 80s and 90s properties.
Yeah, and I think streaming is the next way to go. And I think with these superhero properties, especially the TV ones, I mean, Marvel's going that way by having everything be under one roof now, and they're putting everything on Disney Plus. I think,
For real this time.
yeah, for real this time. I think the DC shows will eventually fall under HBO Max. I mean, we're getting a Green Lantern series. I don't know
yeah.
what continuity that is necessarily.
Too bad it's not Diggle.
Too bad it's not Diggle, but he might appear in
got his ring.
Superman in
I'm
the
just
Superman
saying.
and Lois series.
Is it gonna be?
In case you didn't know, we're getting a Superman and Lois show on the CW also.
Oh
it
yeah,
gonna
that just
be,
totally. Yeah, thank you for making
so
sure.
he's moving to Metropolis, so you might get him again as Green Lantern.
Because that was the one thing, like when it was still like Flash had just started. I'm like, okay, hear me out. John Diggle's gonna become Green Lantern. I'm just saying.
I never bought into that, honestly. I didn't really think
went as
about it
far
at
to
all
thinking, like,
until Elseworlds.
I was thinking like as far as like, oh, maybe his mother's maiden name is Stewart. I'm just saying, like, that would have been.
Well, turns out they wound up playing on that. Ernie Hudson played General Stewart in season 7,
yeah.
The Ghostbusters. So
Right,
they
right,
really
right.
started drilling in it. It wasn't that much of a surprise. Once they realized that people were curious, they just played it up.
Yeah.
And they knew exactly what they were doing. Before we move on to our next topic, Jack, why don't you tell the folks at home what you're up to, what your social media handles are, and go from there.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I do a lot of cosplay. I work with the 501st and the Rebel Legion.
Yeah, he does. He looks great.
Oh, stop. And I do Marvel and Star Wars cosplay. That's on Rocinante cosplay on Instagram.
Sorry, I've been meaning to ask you where that name came from.
So that's actually from the excellent television show The Expanse. It got saved by Amazon Prime. As much as I don't like Bezos, I'm happy he did that. It's a great show. It's one of the most realistic sci-fi television shows I've ever seen in my life that like can blend that into the plot without having to sacrifice it.
I remember you guys talking about that at
It's just such a great show. So the Rocinante is the name of the ship that they legitimately salvaged from a Martian. Anyway,
I thought it was honestly just a weird pairing of letters.
Well, it's
I
also
didn't want to judge, but like
the
I never saw
original.
anything like
The
it.
original source of it comes from the book Don Quixote, because that's the name of his horse.
I see.
Gotcha.
That makes a lot more sense.
And you can also find me on Twitch, where I stream with my competitive team, the Dino First, and that's Rocinante152 on Twitch. Yeah.
Awesome. If you had to give one final grade to Crisis on Infinite Earths with all the shows, before I forget, did you see the Black Lightning crossover also? They had an episode actually devoted to the crossover.
Oh, they did? I wish I'd known that.
You got to go back
he
and
just
watch
kind of
that.
showed up, and I'm like,
He
yeah.
did show up, but there actually was an episode building up to his appearance, and they
Okay.
actually played into it.
All right, I'll watch
so,
that.
Sidebar
I really
from
liked him. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to second
Cress is great.
your
So with just the 5 episodes, give me a final grade on what you felt.
like out of 10 or
A
what's my
letter grade.
scale?
Let's go a letter grade. You can use plus or minus.
Ooh. Is it S grade?
Ooh, I'm gonna definitely.
I'm giving
We're
it
not playing
2 S's
DDR,
way
okay?
up.
What do you call it? I'd probably give it a solid A minus. It still had some of that like
It's pretty good.
that CW roughness that I don't personally. I'm kind of tired of.
I understand.
However, and like the effects in places, I'm just like, all right, I can see the green screen. But at the same time, whew, they pulled it off. Yeah.
That's more than I thought you were going to give it, honestly. Based on how we were talking at Hibachi the other night, I thought it was just
That was a long
man,
day.
we're going for
I had a
this.
lot of feelings.
And he's also had sake squirted down his throat beforehand. So
Oh, that was true.
So we
Yeah.
warmed him up.
Changes.
Well, obviously, I'm going A+. Y'all know me. Thanks so much, Jack. Thank you so much.